Welcome, everybody. This is B for a change, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about past life regression. So, I don't know if you're aware that I do a lot of past life regression with clients, Akashic record readings, sometimes a little bit of mediumship. It all actually flows into each other. And today I had a wonderful client, and I just felt afterwards that I really wanted to talk about what we do when we do past life regressions and why we do them, and why are they so important in your life. So I get flashes about past lives all the time. Um, I believe, and there are others that believe the same, that we have three major impacting past lives on our life, our present life at all times. And once we've healed one of the life wounds, then the next one comes forward. It is a bit of a process, and I have this wonderful pathway here in Avalon behind me, and it is exactly that. Life is, in a way, some people say it's not linear, but in a way, our incarnations are one after the after the other. And very often, the things that we are not dealing with in the life we have had before do get dragged into the next life. But that also actually goes for talents, for knowledge. If you are able to really connect with your past lives, you can actually know things. You sometimes, I'm sure, find yourself thinking, how did I know that? How was I aware of that? But actually, it may be something you learned in another life. So the 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 impetus for this video was a healing that I did for someone, and I accompany people when I do the past life. It's not that they are going into that past life by themselves. I walk with them and I see things that happen to them. Very often in my healings, when I don't do a past life healing, when I do an Avalon soul healing, I also see past lives. And some of them are not always pleasant. You know, we have seen people who've been murdered, people who've been beaten to death, who've suffered terribly. And it's not always pleasant. And so we have to be very careful of what we do and how we are protected. But on the whole, it does help the client to know if they have been betrayed by somebody that were supposed to love them, if they have been hurt, if they have been harmed in a previous life, and whether or not that impacts on their present life. So, when I first came to Avalon, one of the visions that I had for one of my past lives was that I was a death priestess on the tour. I often tell this story because it was so vivid and so unexpected. Now, don't get me wrong, I had past life memories since I was 4. And in fact, to the point that my mother thought I needed psychiatric help. And it was only through the intervention of my grandfather, who is a brujo himself, that she didn't send me into a sanatorium, as they used to call it so euphemistically in those days. So when I came to the tour, I had this vision of the lake all around us. And then I had this vision of a barge bringing someone across. Now, the barge was run by one of the priestesses that was working there, and they would have the body, they would receive the body at the shoreline of Avalon from the families that wanted their loved ones to go to the Isle and maybe die there. So they would have been very close to death, or we would have the body would already be dead. So they would be put on the flat boats. So the Avalonian barges are not these wonderful curved barges. They were actually flat boats, because this is a very shallow lake. Even when the lake wasn't drained, it was a very shallow lake. So it would be quite like a rectangle of sorts. So they would take the body onto the boat. The priestess would have a stang, or the boat would move itself by magic, depending on what you believe, and they would bring the boat back to Avalon. They would bring the boat back to the then very wooded Tor. The Tor used to be covered in trees, and the problem we have now is that because the trees have been taken down so that the animals could graze, we have severe erosion on the Tor, to the point where I think there are plants in place where people will only be allowed to walk there under the guidance of the National Trust and have to pay for it like we do in Stonehenge. The plans are in play, are being made, and it is sad for me that once again one of our sacred places will no longer be available to us unless we pay for it. And I can just see like a barbed wire or a fence around the tor, and I would be devastated if that was the case, because what they did to Stonehenge isn't right either. But I digress. So I saw these priestesses bringing the bodies on these wonderful willow stretchers, and they would be walking them up the hill, and they would place the stretcher somewhere where there would be a sacred space. And this is why we have those gleaming white labyrinth. They would have been gleaming and white, a bit like you know, the White House of Uffington. They would have been gleaming white, those pathways, but there would have been little shallow in cuts, and there would be where you placed the stretcher with the body, and there would be like 4 poles, and the stretcher would rest on those poles. And then priestesses would wash the body, undress it, wash the body, and oil the body. And I'm not talking about sacred, very strong smelling oils, because they were not really what was needed then. When I say oil, I meant perhaps things like bacon fat or lard or something like that, because it was meant to attract the birds that were coming to eat the flesh of the body. And for the first night and day, the priestesses would sit and they would pray and they would talk to the dead person, and they would, you know, sacrifice their time to make sure that the soul had left the body, that the person was comfortable, that the soul was comfortable. And then the crows and the ravens would come and eat the carrion, the body of the person. And then when it was picked clean, what they would do is they would take the bones apart and they would be buried. Now, some people say they would be buried in the tor, and there has been a lot of archaeological inquiry, and some people have tried with infrared lights, with ultraviolet lights, to see what actually is within the tor, but we don't know because they haven't been able to see. So let's just think that that this is a fairy hill, a fairy mount, and that the inside is protected because it is actually fairy property and fairy realm. I love that idea. We do talk about Up Nith coming out on the 31st of October to collect the souls that have been wandering the planet, the earth, that particular place. It's not that he's stealing the souls from the ones that are alive. That's not the truth. Anyway, so these visions, these pictures, it's like a movie in my head. And so when a person asks for past life regression, and even if they don't necessarily see anything, I will be able to see things. And when I talk to them about it, then they can see, or they can add something to it, or they know who the person or the being is that I'm speaking about. It is a beautiful process. It's a process that needs to be approached with good care, good spiritual housekeeping, in a very gracious and very sacred way. It's not something that anyone should attempt who hasn't got a deep connection with the realm of the dead. That's just an aside, because there are so many people out there now that tell you that they have these capabilities, but truthfully, I'm not sure. Some of them seem a little dubious. But that is your choice. You choose who you feel is the most safe for you, and that is the important part. So as we are then going through the life, I don't know usually anything about the person that comes to see me. Usually they're booking in either via Calendly or they book in online. And it is best that way, because then I know that whatever I'm seeing is not tainted by my own personal view of somebody or something that they've been telling me. So I really love seeing some of these things because they do help people, even if they're not necessarily comfortable. So let's say the client has several body issues, and they all sort of point to more of a soul issue than a physical issue. When our bodies misbehave, when our bodies become ill, when we are suddenly um, malfunction, when our bodies malfunction, that's very often to do with a scream of help from the soul. It's a way of making us aware that there is something that we need to look at that is important for us and that we cannot allow to continue because it's making us ill. So, a lack of rest, a lack of eating well, a lack of drinking water. I'm just noticing I need some water in a minute. And with that, we then have the messages from the past lives, the images, the scenes, it can be all sorts of things. And they will tell us exactly where we need to start looking at the solution for some of the behavior that is actually harming us. And it is us that's doing it to us. So, for example, if you're in overwhelm or overwork, who's the person who has to say no? And very often people say, oh, but I can't because this X, Y, Z. And I'm like, okay, is that more important than your life? Because we are talking about a life-threatening condition sometimes. Sometimes people get very, very sick and they're taking no action because they're trying to avoid seeing a doctor. They're trying to avoid taking care of themselves, and they always feel that they need to be in service to people, other people. I want you to really hear me here. When I see past lives over and over and over again, where people are in servitude rather than in service, there is a difference. And sometimes you had to be in servitude and you didn't get a choice. But then you were so conditioned that in a life where you do have a choice, you don't make the choice to look after yourself first. I'm not asking you to be selfish. I'm asking you to be self-aware and knowing when your cup runneth, uh, you know, empty, you must now go ahead and fill your cup, make yourself well again, and then you can help other people. People are always saying, oh, I want to help others, I want to help others. What for? Why? Why do you feel the need to help others? And the litmus test is, how often do you help others without them ever knowing? How often do you do something for others and it goes unnoticed? Not because the person is nasty or anything like that, but you've done something that you haven't told anybody about, yeah? And this is the difference between actually being in service to others or wishing to virtue signaling your own, oh, look at how fabulous I'm helping this person and this person. And I'm sorry, but sometimes that is really the case. And that doesn't necessarily nurture your soul. Um, so with the Akashic record readings, it is really important that we understand that we need to leave our own mind behind and we allow somebody else's mind to come forward. We allow the consciousness of a person long gone to come forward, and understanding that as we are also reading the past, we are also looking at the future. We're looking at the future life of the person that is with us. And the pages are unwritten, as we call it. The pages are unwritten, but you can see as you are doing the work, you can see the pages that are, in the close proximity to this moment are rewritten. They can be rewritten. Your pages, your future can be rewritten because you've healed something that was holding you back. So suddenly somebody who is not necessarily doing their soul's purpose, fulfilling their soul's purpose, they suddenly can go ahead and be amazing at what they're doing. And it doesn't matter what you do, they can be more expanded. They can help in a way that they hadn't thought of before. Inspiration, goddess of inspiration. Inspiration will rush through you when you have made space, when you have let go of something that you've been dragging around. I always see these people with this big burlap sack, not quite Father Christmas, but they're holding the sack over their shoulder and they're trudging along and they're dragging all this stuff behind them. I also very often see chains around people's feet with these great big shackles and these big balls of iron, and they're dragging them behind them because they haven't let go of certain things. And that could be in this life and that can be in the past lives. The other thing, of course, is that when we see some of the past life work, unless we're specifically looking for something that needs healing, we can also see the beauty of that life. We can see the moments of joy and happiness. And very often, the past life comes forward. A really well-lived, very happily lived past life will come forward and say, okay, what I'd like you to say to this person that you're reading for is, I was where you were once, and I changed, and I transformed, and I helped myself, and I healed myself, and I worked with myself, and I was able to become the happy person that I am as you see me now. And I see them, in all sorts of situations and from all sorts of times. So very often a past life also gives you a hint towards a future that you may wish to embrace, that you may wish to bring about by working and learning about what needs to be let go of, what needs to be held on to, what needs to be transformed, what can be added to, and changed so that it is to the highest good of the person that's doing it. So past life is all of that. It's not just telling people about a person they once were. It's about telling people that that person is here with them at this moment of time, that the ancestors, the blood ancestors, and the past life ancestors are still with you in order to help you in this life become the most expanded version of yourself that you can be. And it really isn't about financial success. It's not about making money. It's not about, I really, really, really can't stress that enough. When you start doing the work for monetary and financial gain, when that becomes all that you do it for, then your connection with the other realm, your connection with the realm of the ancestors of the past lives will be discontinued. Your membership to the library will be revoked. If you read the Akashic records, you know what I'm talking about. Your membership for the library will be revoked if you don't do it in good faith and with an open heart. If it's all about money, if it's all about making the dosh, it ain't gonna work. So this is my talk about past lives and Akashic records. There are so many people that I have helped, and it was really sweet of the lady to say, "Oh, I'm definitely going to recommend you." But she came on the recommendation of someone that has seen my work, that has experienced my work. And you know what? That is the best kind of marketing. It may not get you 50,000 followers on Facebook, but it will get you the people, the clients that need you the most. And that is what I'm here for. I'm not necessarily here for getting clients who just want to hear what they pay for. Because sometimes when we read, then we need to say things that are tough. And we need to ask people to change. And we need to tell them the messages that are coming forward, whether they are good or whether they are bad news. They are what they need at that time in order to find life bearable. So don't be afraid, but also don't go to somebody who is not qualified to do the work. There's a lot of dross around in the world right now. I can't necessarily tell you that that I am the best, certainly not, but I will say that people do trust me when I speak to them about their past lives. Why do I do what I do? Even though I see some of the most horrific things, child abuse, violence against women. Earlier on, the client had suffered terribly under violence from a partner. She'd lost a child through that violence. It's, the things I see are not always pleasant, and no amount of money that you pay will make that go away. What we do is we ask the lady, we ask Cerridwen to cleanse and clear our consciousness from those images, and then they're gone. So it is helpful to know where you come from. Interestingly, I have had several lives in nunneries. For me, it's not about Christianity, it's about sacred sisterhood. And that is really what we do here in Avalon. I would like to wish you a very, very happy day, week. It is Monday today. I'm on my way to Bala. I can't wait. I'm about to pack my satchel, and I'm going to take the sacred waters of Avalon to Bala and combine the waters there. I do that all the time so that we understand that as Cerridwen priestesses, we belong to both Bala and Avalon. On that note, blessed be, and have a wonderful and joyful time and life.